Okay. So, right. So, I think what I'm going to do is focus this one a little bit on the stress bucket. I'll just give it a bit more time for some people to jump on, if they would like. I mean, the weather's pretty good here in London, so we shall see. So, right, I think today, hello, we got someone joining already. What I think I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about the check stress bucket. So, again, if you've got any specific questions about any kind of health related topic, joint pain or digestive issues or some mental emotional stuff, like just chuck it in the comments or the questions thing. But I think I'll just kick this off with talking a little bit about the check stress bucket. So just let me know if you can hear me. Okay, so just give me like a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. So the check stress bucket, what we've got here is a model for understanding how stress loads on a system. So the technical term, there's kind of two technical terms. There's like physiological load or allostatic load, which they kind of mean the same thing, but in the check system we tend to use physiological load more than allostatic. But anyway, this stress bucket is a concept where all stress summates in the body. So the body doesn't know or can't really massively differentiate between stresses. It only knows whether it's either too stressed or the stress levels that one is going through is kind of within range. So there are 6 primary stresses, 6 of them. And it's not to say that we don't need some. And that's an interesting concept because like everyone just gets a bit up, down, left, right, and sideways about stress. And like, oh no, I'm too stressed and this and that. But at the same time, like we need a certain amount of stress. Otherwise our system will actually start to break down as well. So the person who actually invented the term stress said that the total absence of stress is death. So we actually need a certain amount of each of these in order for the system to actually be healthy. Because there's a certain sort of therapeutic dose of stress that actually allows our system to have a bit of resistance and fight against something in order to actually grow stronger. So when it comes to stress, oh, hello, we got Lena in, Angelina. Hi, how are you doing? So we're just talking about the stress bucket, the check stress bucket, how stress tends to summate and load on the body. So I'm just going to run down the 6 primary stresses and talk about how they all summate in the body. So all stress summating in the body means that whatever stresses there are, the body can't differentiate between whether it's what kind of stress there is. It only knows whether it's too stressed or whether it's within range. So the first stressor is physical. Now, we actually need a certain amount of stress. We got another one in. Hello. We need a certain amount of stress. So each of these points that I'm going to go through, there's an optimal dose, a therapeutic dose, and then there's too much, and there's also too little as well. So physical, that's too much movement or too little movement. Both of those are suboptimal. So we need just the right amount. And this one's a bit of a tricky one for, say, athletes or people that use their bodies a lot, because especially if you enjoy using your body, there can be a tendency to use it too much. The second one is chemical. So this would be related to toxicity, for example. Now, chemical can be like chemicals that you ingest through food as well, but sometimes it can just be like if there's chemicals diffusing in the environment that you're in, like the building or outside, there's a whole bunch of smog and all the rest of it, and your detoxification systems are being overloaded, so your liver's overburdened, and that has repercussions on a whole bunch of other organ systems as well. But at the same time, we do need a certain amount of chemical stressor in order for our organ systems to actually remain strong. And the third is electromagnetic. So that is sunshine or ultraviolet. Now, this can be too much or too little. So too much sunburn, too little sunshine, there's repercussions there with not enough production of vitamin D, and so we need a certain amount of that. The fourth is, this one's quite common, this one's a pretty big one right now. This is psychic stress. So too much of that is what Paul Chek describes as stinking thinking. So that's the glass is always half empty kind of thinking. And this is also where the conversation for anxious thoughts and depressive thoughts and mental emotional challenges comes in, because all of that stuff is psychic stress, but also it can be related to individual events, like if there's challenges with a relationship or family. And sometimes it's more chronic, like it could be the individual and how they think about themselves and their own self-perception. Yeah, that's Paul Chek's one, stinking thinking. It can be more chronic, the individual themselves, like how they view themselves, their own sense of self-worth and their own amount of self-esteem, and how much they view the importance of what they have to share with the world. Or it can be more sudden, like you suddenly break up with someone, or there's a challenge with the family, or there's a death in the family, like that. It all relates to that. It's the intangible aspects. But again, we do need a certain amount of psychic stress. For example, we could have psychic stress. Oh, what's up, Kane? Hello. There is a certain amount of psychic stress that is helpful. Like, for example, if we're learning something new, it could be intellectual, it could be a physical skill. Devin Perry, yeah, you're never gonna stop saying that, are you? So we need a certain amount of it in order to actually expand our ability to use our mind to get what we would like out of life. Like, it's not always easy to do things that we would like to do. However, at the same time, if we're overburdened by all of these mental emotional challenges, then all of it just culminates together, and the system, as I said, all stress summates in the body. The system only knows it's either too stressed or it's within a range that it can actually handle. So that's psychic stress. The next one, number 5, is nutritional stress. And just before I go on with this, like, if any of you have questions, just shoot them in the comment section, because I can see them popping up here. So anything I say, if you've got a question, just shoot it in there and I can go off on some tangents. I'm just kind of kicking off with this particular topic about the stress bucket just to get things rolling. Psychic stress. It's because there's different forms of stress. Psychic stress relates to the intangible forms of stress. So a physical stress, aside from training too much, another example of that would getting punched in the face. That's a pretty big physical stress. That might be slightly psychic too, just depending on the scenario. But psychic stress is all about the mind and the emotions. Because, and again, I'm just going off on another tangent here in terms of like the Czech Institute totem pole model hierarchy of systems, in terms of what system controls ones below it. Right at the top of the totem pole is the psyche. And the reason why it is right at the top is because the psyche can override the entire system to the point where someone decides that they don't want to live anymore. So they can decide to part this life via their own hand and choice. That happens a lot, very, very sadly. But the point I'm trying to illustrate here is the psyche can control the entire system and override it. So that's why we need to differentiate between different types of stress and emphasize addressing if there is too much psychic stress in a particular individual's life, because of the physiological impacts that it can have as a sort of knock-on effect down the line. But psychic stress relates to the intangible forms of stress that affect our perceptions of ourselves and the world and just how we're feeling about life. So number 5, nutritional stress. Nutritional stress is not eating the correct foods. So a simple start, because there's a lot of nuance to this, a simple start could be not eating organic food and eating food that has been sprayed with a lot of herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, rodenticides, just a lot of crop kind of chemicals. And again, that's going to get into the system. It's going to overburden the liver. The liver's going to be stressed, and that's going to negatively affect the optimal functioning of the organ systems themselves. So that's one very basic start with regard to nutritional stress. The second kind of nutritional stress is not eating right for your primal pattern type. And what I mean by primal pattern type, it relates to what your genetic heritage is. Because whatever your genetic heritage is will determine the kind of food proportions and the kinds of foods that your system is more adapted to manage. For example, if someone's genetic heritage is related to a group of people that lived in a part of the world where the ground did not freeze during the winter, there would have been a larger abundance of plant foods available, and as such they're more adapted to ferment more protein out of fiber. And Byron Robinson MD in the early 20th century did cadaver studies, so he did dissections on cadavers, and what he found is that there was a difference in terms of entron length from mouth to anus that could be like 20 to 42 feet or 21 to 42 feet or something like that. That's a wide discrepancy, right? But the longer entron length was from the people that came from a part of the world where the ground didn't freeze during the winter. So the temperate climate is far hotter. And people that had a shorter entron length, they came from a part of the world where the ground froze during the winter. And what that means is they're less adapted to handle plant foods and more sugary kinds of things. And they needed more fat and protein, because when the ground freezes during the winter, it's only the animals that are available because the plants are all frozen. Like, you could give an organic pineapple to an Eskimo and it could still make them sick, because then they don't know, their system can't handle that density of sugar. And you could give a Hawaiian a whole bunch of animal fat and not give them anything plant-based or fruity, so to speak, and that could block their system up as well. So when it comes to nutritional stress, that's the second part, eating right for your primal pattern type. And the third part would be meal timing. So again, there's more than this, but the third part would be meal timing. So eating too late or too close to going to sleep and not having your bigger meal in the first part of the day. So if in terms of eating, if we kind of think about food volume, so AM to PM, we kind of want it to look like an inverted triangle. So we eat more in the first half of the day, and then we kind of sort of piece it out later in the day. Again, it's quite general. We have to tailor this to the individual and how much activity they're doing per day. But in general, that's what we want to do, because we also want to have at least like 4 hours of no eating before we go to bed to give the digestive system a nice break. And again, the last part with nutritional stress is inflammatory foods. So most people, for example, can't process gluten. So gluten is in a lot of grains and bread and things like that. And what gluten actually is, it's a protein. So there is nutrition, but it's kind of, you got to think about it like a baseball. A baseball has a ball, but then it's got a coating on the outside of it. So gluten is like that. It's got a coating, and you need certain enzymes in order to break that down to get the nutrition. But in terms of okay, the question. Oh, what's that? Okay, I'll just finish this, then I'll answer that. But in terms of most people don't have the enzyme in order to be able to break down the coating of the gluten molecule. So what you get is people eating gluten because bread is just very popularized, and cakes and cookies and sugar and all the rest of it, which, don't get me wrong, they're utterly delicious. And I've tried every single which way in order to be able to kind of sneak them into the diet plan, but it just doesn't work for me. So what you get is you get an undigested food particle, and because that gluten molecule is kind of like a ball bearing in your digestive tract, starts to poke holes in it, and then you get something called leaky gut syndrome. And then you get food particles going through that hole in the gut wall, getting into the bloodstream. The body sees that and is like, what the hell is that doing here? So it kicks up the immune system. The immune system goes up. That's really draining because it takes a lot of energy. So people feel tired all the time, and like digestion's not working very well. And you get a lot of more undigested food proteins, which can lead to potentially little critters, shall we say, which would be like fungus and parasites coming in and chomping up all the extra bits. So gluten is quite a big culprit. Gluten and sugar are quite big ones, and also unpasteurized dairy, white flour, and white table salt. Salt's good. Sea salt's good. White table salt isn't. White table salt doesn't have any nutrition, but good quality sea salt like Heliman. My goodness, it's really hot today, so my concentration is not what it usually is. Himalayan sea salt, there we go, got it out at the end. Himalayan sea salt, that's really, really good. Just to make sure the electrolytes are up, but table salt doesn't have all the mineral content in it. So about what time do I have my fullest meal a day? For me, it's the morning. I like to eat my biggest meal in the morning. So I've got my routine. I wake up quite early. But I'm also a morning person by nature as well. So I like to have my bigger meal in the morning, and then I sort of taper it down. And then usually by 5 p.m, I won't have anything after 5 p.m. So that's my kind of plan with meal timings. And the last you got someone else in. Hello, welcome. So the number 6 stressor number 6 is thermal. So that would be whether like too much heat, too little heat, too much cold, too little cold. So if someone's overheating or if someone's just freezing to death or something like that. So again, if we're in the middle, we're not too hot, we're not too cold, we're nice and comfortable. Like if we're trying to go to sleep, if it's too hot or if it's too cold, hard to sleep. If we're just at the right temperature, then it's much easier to sleep. Kind of hard at the moment in London because it's absolutely roasting. Sleep for me has been a bit sort of wavy the last like couple of days, a bit up and down because it's just so hot. But the point I'm making with all of these stresses and the concept of the stress bucket is if we do feel too stressed, we can go through these 6 points of physical stress, chemical stress, electromagnetic stress, psychic stress, nutritional stress, and thermal stress. And we can just do a little inventory, right? And we can just do a little inventory and just see, am I training too much or too little? Like, is there like, am I like around am I walking like around a whole bunch of cars or in some dirty buildings? So that might be chemical stress, or if there's loads of like cleaning agents, or like for chemical stress, if someone was like in a nail salon or like a hair salon, there's loads of like hairspray and nail stuff. Like that's something that I talk to with female clients, like what kind of chemicals are in their products. Makeup as well, like if the makeup is organic or not. If it's not organic, that can really put a lot of chemicals into the system. Because typically if it's on your skin, you're essentially drinking it as well. So, but understanding this principle of all stress summates in the body really allows us to understand that it doesn't matter if we're doing this thing really well, we're doing that thing just kind of fobbing off because we don't think it's related. The body can't tell the difference. It only knows whether it's too stressed or not stressed enough. Perfume. It depends. Like if the perfume was organic and made with essential oils, then probably not. But if it wasn't, if it had like alcohol in it and it wasn't the highest of quality perfume, even if it smelled nice, highest quality perfume, it potentially could have had heavy metals in it as well. So something pretty good for that. A supplement that's really, really helpful is called liposomal glutathione. So what that is, glutathione is the most potent antioxidant that your body makes, and you can actually take it as a supplement, which just helps you bolster your liver's ability to detox toxins from your body. Because typically, we've been exposed to chemical toxins, the body will store them in fat tissue. So this is one of the things, like people that have been trying to lose excess weight, if they are, and they can't, even if they're eating right and training right, there could be a toxicity issue. Because what the body will do to protect your internal organs, if there's say like chemicals or heavy metals in the system, it will put them in a fat cell and surround that fat cell with water in order to protect the internal organs from that until such point that the liver can detoxify it out of the system. So liposomal glutathione is a really good supplement to help kind of, if someone suspects where they might have some toxicity, then just taking that is a really good way to help clean the system out. And it's also really good for like clearing up the skin and just making the skin look vibrant and taking the brunt off the liver. Yeah, essential oils are great. And if you want like a good company for organic perfume, then there's a company called Eden Perfumes, EDN Perfumes, and all of their perfumes are made with essential oils, so they smell great, they last a long time, and they don't have alcohol and heavy metals and all the other bells and nasty whistles. in it, but that's a really good one to look into. And then just general essential oils that you can like put in a diffuser are just really nice and relaxing. Or if you wanted to just put some drops on your wrist or on the back of your head or your forehead, depending on what you want. Eden perfumes, they're really, really good. And they've got so many different scents. And if you actually, I haven't been to one of their stores, but I have bought a couple of their fragrances, which I really, really liked. And but I did see that if you go into the store, they have a couple. I think they've got one in, like near Notting Hill area. There's a couple. You can go into the store and actually make your own scent. Like they can help mix stuff for you, and you can go in and it's not too expensive either. And it does last 30 milliliters, which is kind of like 20 or 30 pounds or something. Or was it like 50? Something like that. Anyway, it's not too expensive, but you can go in and kind of make your own, and it does last quite a long time because it's quite potent, because it's because it's all essential oils and kind of like the parfum side, so it's not massively diluted, so it does last for quite a good duration. So yeah, definitely look into that. So that's my little sort of spiel on the stress bucket. So if you guys have any more questions, just fire some of them at me. Like if there's anything that you either of you are potentially dealing with, or like if there's some niggles, like some joint pain, maybe some digestive issues, or just some things that you're curious about, like feel free to drop me some questions in the comments, and I'll go off on some other tangents. So I've got a few more minutes to answer some questions if you guys have got any. Oh, cool. Who's the mentor that recommended you? That'd be interesting to know. Well, I hope you have enjoyed hearing me ramble on about the stress bucket. There's lots more to. Oh yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna be talking with Nick tomorrow. In the evening. Yeah, Nick's amazing. He's a year ahead of me in the kind of like a year and a half or so, almost 2 years ahead of me in the Czech Academy. So I'm just going into my 4th year of the Czech Academy, and he's about to finish the 5th year. So he's definitely doing his thing. He's on the ball. He's got a lot of really insightful things to say, and it's so amazing to just be connected to this network of Czech practitioners just across the globe. Like we've got quite a few faculty members that are in London, and we've got quite a few Czech practitioners in Europe in general. There's all of that lot from America, which is it's really, really wonderful, because you just feel connected to this just global family. And even if you haven't met, as soon as you just say to someone like, yeah, I'm a Czech practitioner too, it's just like tomorrow I'm doing a private session. So that what I was talking about with Nick is I mentioned I'm doing a private call, like me and Nick on Zoom. So I wasn't planning on doing another live tomorrow, but if you want, Angelina, like, you're welcome to like just drop me a message, catch up a bit. Like, I'm happy to just chat, explain some things. Like, if you got any other questions, I'm happy to talk about some stuff. So yeah, like, I still have a couple more minutes. So if you guys do have some other questions, then do feel free to send some over. And yeah, this concept of the stress bucket, like, I'm doing my best to get this out to the dance community, which is where Angelina and I met. Yeah, because it's one of the most amazing things, but I did find dancers tend to veer a little far on the too much physical stress side of things. So but we all do at some point. So it's not to say that I'm some kind of saint. I mean, I've got a long and storied history of doing too much and having to live with the consequences. But that's what Paul Chek calls the pain teacher. Like, we do something, the pain comes, and as a result, we have to learn. Because PAIN is an acronym. PAIN stands for prompting attention in the now. So, as one of my teachers says, pain is like a finger that's prodding you in the present moment, letting you know that something's wrong. So we can either be like, oh God, pain, horror, this is awful, curse my life, stinking thinking, as we mentioned. Or we can be like, pain teacher, all right, what's this here to teach me? And then we can kind of be grateful for the lesson and just move on that way. And because that's the best way to do it. I've tried other ways, but that just doesn't really work. We just end up in suffering. And as Ken Wilber says, suffering equals pain plus avoidance. So if we're in pain and we don't actually try and avoid it by like trying to medicate the pain away, by of trying to avoid understanding the reason why it happened in the first place, we can actually move forward effectively. All right, effective ways to manage stress bucket, load prior to perhaps day dance performance. So managing the stress bucket, that comes down to what we in the Czech system call your 4 doctor core values. So Dr. Happiness, what is my dream? Having a clear understanding of what your dream is, what direction you're going. Dr. Diet, so eating all organic, eating in line with your primal pattern type, clearing out the inflammatory foods, staying properly hydrated as well, of clean water, not tap water because it's filled with chemicals. Dr. Quiet, how much rest do I need? And making sure we have time for ourselves to be introspective and time for our spiritual practice. And Dr. Movement, so am I doing too much or too little movement? Am I doing the right movement for what my Dr. Happiness is? For example, someone who wants to be a pro athlete, they're going to need a different movement program than someone who wants to be a painter. Because you put a painter on an Olympian's training program, I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And vice versa. So managing the stress bucket comes down to 4 doctor core values. And core values means you understand what your boundaries are and you can say no when you need to have time for yourself. And being able to say no means that you have the 3 sort of things in the right order. And what I mean by that is I, then we, and then all. So it's not we, all, I, where we come last. We can't give what we don't have. So we need to actually take the time for ourselves first in order to be vital enough to then share with someone else. So if we know that X performance day is coming at a certain time, then someone saying, what do I need? When do I need to go to bed? What do I need to eat? How much time do I need by myself for X number of days before that performance so I'm filled up so I can give to the crowd, for example. how can you find out what your primal pattern is? Okay, so we have a questionnaire in the check system, but you can also get that questionnaire. So if we work with clients, we'll give them that questionnaire, but you can also get the questionnaire in Paul Check's book, How to Eat, Move and Be Healthy. I mean, the title is backwards a bit because I'm using the front camera. So you can buy Paul's book, which is our Bible. It's the Bible of holistic health, so to speak, although maybe that's a bit of a Christian reference, so I don't know how Paul would feel about that. But it's got the basic questionnaires in there, of which the primal pattern diet type is, but an even simpler version of finding out what your primal pattern type is to, again, it's not as nuanced. The gold standard would be deciding to work with a check practitioner so they can integrate it with all the other assessments and questionnaires as well. But a step down from that, buy the book, and then a step down from that is asking yourself what your genetic heritage is. So if you came from a part of the world where the ground froze during the winter, chances are you'll need more fat and protein and maybe some vegetables in your diet predominantly. If you come from a part of the world where the ground did not freeze during the winter, then you'll probably do better with more plant foods in comparison and lower down on the oils section. And Moroccan and from Argentina. Okay. So like for me, I'm half Indian and I'm half English. But at the same time, because I take after my mum who's English, so I don't look massively brown, although when I tan I go quite gold. I have lived in England my whole life as well, so ambient temperature matters. So I tend to do better with a bit more of a mix, so like a mix of good quality proteins and plant foods together. I'm not good with gluten at all, so I don't eat it. So what my suggestion would be is look at what people used to eat in those countries, so Morocco and Argentina, hundreds of years ago, before like all of the invention of all of these chemicals and shit like that. So look at what they used to eat hundreds of years ago and then find a middle ground between the two, and then you can start experimenting. So you can start changing the proportions of your meals and make a little food journal diary and see how your body reacts. Tend to crave hot nourishing foods rather than cold. Yeah. So that sounds to me like your body probably wants to have a bit more sort of denser meals, so to speak. And also, again, I am being quite general because it is most optimal to get assessed by a practitioner, because then we can look at like other aspects of a case history to see like what kind of total stress load someone is under at the time, and also like ambient temperature. And also for women, like we've got an entire course in our training about how to train women effectively and female athletes in accordance to their hormonal cycle, because when the period of time of their hormonal cycle will influence what kind of foods they tend to crave, because of the undulation of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. So what foods they're going to kind of want is going to vary depending on that, assuming that the cycle is healthy in the first place and the adrenal glands are not fatigued, and they've got enough high quality fats coming into their diet and organic cholesterol, so their body can make the steroid hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone in the first place, in order to maintain the health of the cycle. Because if they don't, and the cycle's not healthy in the first place, when estrogen and progesterone goes down, then it almost feels like they're hormonally and emotionally they're falling off a cliff, where even though the energy level should drop, there should still be some semblance of normalcy and ability to function, even though they just feel a little bit more tired. That's what Angie Check, Paul's wife, was saying in terms of what an optimal healthy hormonal cycle should feel like, even in those periods when estrogen and progesterone is lower. Found working with Czech practitioner and the GI and transit time and food chart. Yeah, that's all really, really important, like understanding the food chart and the transit time, and also because transit time, like there's an optimal amount of transit time, and too much or too little will infer that there's something going on in the digestive tract. Like if it's way too long, then chances are that they might be constipated. And then we've got to look at what kind of foods they're eating. Are they eating inflammatory foods? Is there something that their body can't digest? Is there a fungal or parasite infection potentially? Or it could just be as simple as like, are they drinking enough water? Because if they're not drinking enough water and they're dehydrated, even if you eat all the right foods, your body's going to squeeze water out of the fecal matter in order to hydrate itself. But then if fecal matter's dehydrated in the intestinal tract, it can't pass through optimally. So then you're just gonna lead to constipation, which just is not very fun. So there's lots of different things that we bring in because as per the term holistic means wholeness. So we can't just, it's like a spider's web. You twang one end, it's going to make all the other ends move. So we deal with nutrition, but it's going to affect everything else. We deal with the psyche, it's going to affect everything else. So we need to understand all of it and how they integrate together and screen it all with that frame of mind as well. So that's why I say like working with a Czech practitioner is the gold standard. But like the second best thing is buying Paul's book. Do that. You can get it on Amazon, but make sure you get the second edition, because the second edition has had the four doctors added to it. So the second edition is the one that you want to get. Right. Just to wrap up, I guess, unless you guys want to fire another question out, it's totally fine with me. Just to wrap up, thank you for joining. I hope you found this helpful. What I will do, I'll make sure that I save this and pop it onto my page so you can watch it back, and like, just because I know sometimes it's hard to remember everything, but I'll do this so you can watch it back. And if either of you are interested in addressing some issues that you may have, like if there's some joint pain, some digestive issues, mental, emotional issues, then do feel free to reach out to me. I would be happy to have a consultation call. And my consultation calls are always free as well. And there's no pressure to do anything. So if you just wanted to find out more about what that would look like, just drop me a message and we can talk through that, and that wouldn't be any cost. Or again, if you know of someone else, like maybe a family member or we're in the UK. I'm based in London, so that would be London time if you are out of the country. But the time zones in general don't seem to be too bad. Like London's quite good. It's kind of in the middle of places. So even if like one of my current clients is based in America, but it just means that like it's evening for me and morning for her. And even in other parts of the world, like it would be a similar thing. Like time zones aren't too bad of a thing with London, just because of where we're located. But yeah, as I was saying, if not for either of you, then if you have like family members or friends that are dealing with some stuff, like some injuries that need to be rehabilitated and it's just not working, like maybe they've seen physios and chiropractors and massage therapists and it's sort of working but not fully, or if there's some mental emotional things that are going on, or there's a mix and just seems like a bit of a complicated web that they're having trouble figuring out, then feel free to refer me to them. I'd be happy to help, or based on where they're at, if I'm not the right dude, then I can see if there's another Czech practitioner that's closer to them, or if there's distance between me and them, then I can include another Czech practitioner to assist me who's closer, and there's lots of things. But anyway, feel free to reach out, and thank you again for joining. I hope this was very, very helpful. I'm probably going to do more of these, or try to do them more consistently, just to get more of the holistic information out there and to help. So I hope both of you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. And Angelina, it was really, really lovely to see you. I know it's been a while since we said hi in class. Do drop me a message and hit me up. I'll probably do that as well after this, just to catch up, because I know it's been a while since we just said hi, because it's usually hi before class, and then it's just getting the lungs blasted in by John. But yeah, lovely to see both of you here, and the other few people who dipped in, and feel free to keep in touch. And Angelina, I'll drop you another message to catch up a little bit more. So enjoy the rest of your day, and lots of love, and talk soon. So let's try and save this now and make sure I put it on the page.